The Mayberry Investments Limited Virtual Investor Forum has been the standard for investor education in Jamaica for decades, where top financial minds provide comprehensive insight into the market and ideal investment strategies and opportunities for our clients. Celebrating 37 years of excellence in investment banking. The Mayberry Virtual Investor Forum, investing in Jamaica.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to welcome you to our virtual investor briefing. I'm your host, Dan Theok, Senior Vice President of Investment Banking. And today we'll be discussing Supreme Ventures Limited. And I'm glad to have with me today Gary Peart, the Executive Chairman of Supreme Ventures Limited. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Don. Hello, everybody.
And additionally, we have the Executive Chairman of Mayberry Investments Limited, Mr. Christopher Berry, here with us. Welcome, Mr. Berry.
Hi, Dan.
Thanks for being with us, gentlemen. Today, specifically, we wanted to look at Supreme Ventures Limited's first quarter results. So we'll be happy to bring those results to you in a moment. I want to remind you guys, if you're a fan of the content, then don't forget to subscribe, and you can hit the bell to stay up to date with the channel. We upload content just like this every week. Additionally, if it's your very first time investing in the market, then we encourage you to start that journey with Mayberry Investments Limited. Follow us on social media to learn more about how you can get started today. So, without delay, as we promised, I want to go over the Q1 results for Supreme Ventures Limited, and they are stellar. These are the results for the quarter ended March 31st, 2024. First up, I want to report that gross ticket sales were $29 billion, and from that, we generated $13 billion of income, which is 2% higher than the previous quarter, same period last year, of $12.86 billion. On top of that, direct expenses were contained to only a 1% increase at $10.1 billion, and the result was the gross profit jumped by 9% to $3.1 billion. Additionally, SG&A, which had jumped in previous quarters, finally looks like it's well under control. We see SG&A falling by 10% to $1.675 billion. And when you put that together, the result is operating profit of $1.43 billion, which is up by a whopping 34% in the quarter. After taxation, it's a $1.2 billion profit, still up by 30% over the prior period, and then the net profit attributable to shareholders, $868 million, up by 22% compared to $712 million for the same quarter last year. So great results. EPS of 32 cents per quarter, again up by 22%. Total assets up to $22.15 billion. That's up by 20%. Shareholders' equity is down by 4% to roughly $6 billion. So that's net of dividends that were declared for the period. And total liabilities also up to $16 billion. Current share price at $23.49 represents a PE of 24 times. So it's trading a little bit richly compared to the market average, but it's obvious because the market's expecting for the results to be improving in the future, and we'll definitely be talking about that. And it's great to see them turning $868 million in the quarter. That's great results. Trailing earnings, $2.57 billion. Expect to see that getting up closer to $3.5 billion as we roll out over the next 3 or so quarters. Next slide shows sort of how the actual revenues are broken up, and the lion's share continue to come in from the actual lottery games, followed by sports betting and by PIN codes or telephone sales. So relatively flat sales, only 1% growth as we mentioned before. No major change in the segments. Next slide shows the performance by quarter, and we can see, sorry, this is the composition of the revenues in percentage terms, again with the lion's share of the revenues coming from the gaming revenues, 45%. Then on the next slide, we see the performance by quarter. And again, after 2 lackluster quarters, we see that they're finally jumping with the revenues up to $867 million. Not quite the $1 billion mark that I, Dan Theok, am looking for, but I have a sneaky feeling that in quarters to come, we will see profits tipping $1 billion. That being said, it's still a stellar performance over the last 4 quarters, and you can see even compared to the prior year, it's good to see this improvements. And I'm sure as we get into the Q&A, Gary will explain to us and expound on what happened in the prior 2 quarters and what adjustments they made and why is the profit jumping like this in Q1. Folks, I want to remind you again, if you have any questions, feel free to send them in. I'll be happy to get to them at the end of the segment. Next and final slide, as usual, tends to just show the trading history of the share. And we can see that this share has traded with a 52-week high of $31, a low of $20. In recent weeks, we've seen it sort of trend down from $26 to the $23 space. So great time to get you some if you can. I expect that we'll see that trending back up closer to the 52-week high of $30 in the upcoming weeks. So that's it. Quick review of SVL for the quarter. And, just want to jump into it. Gary, I've got several questions in my mind, but I think first one I would like to tackle is what did you do different this quarter? It's great to see you guys are back.
Yeah. I believe I was here about 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
We're discussing the audited numbers for 2023. And I pointed out that, we've never had a fourth quarter like we had in 2023. I mean, we normally average close to, I think your numbers here are saying almost $1 billion in 22, dropped to 300 million. The year before it was close to $1 billion as well. And we explained the reasons why it happened. And, one of the things that we're realizing is, we always have at least 2 quarters that is close to $1 billion,
Yeah.
800-900 billion dollars. Then you have 2 quarters that are pretty soft. We've never had a soft fourth quarter, but we've had it now. But this is business we're in, it's about the averages. So you'll have very good months. You'll have bad months, for a better word. Bad for us, great for my customers.
Right.
So
it means you paid out a lot of.
We paid out more than. So the whole business is about the game design. Yeah. So as I indicated before, in the December quarter, all the things that could have happened across all the different product lines occurred. But we know the business, and so we weren't surprised by the outturn for the first quarter. And I think I kind of alluded to the fact that what we saw in December it's not likely to rear its head in the first quarter, and it did. So we're a good solid quarter, up 20%, strong revenue growth, not revenue growth, GGR growth for the quarter. The good and bad for the quarter is that the increase in revenue was less than 2%.
Right.
And normally we can find a way to equal double-digit revenue growth. I think the reason for that is the whole economy has been pretty tight, especially with Bank of Jamaica and interest rates, etc. I think you're seeing it manifest itself in our target market, which is the core of the economy. And so the good news is that I expect that the revenues should start to pick up into the second quarter. Which I think would help to drive profits into the second quarter as well. We're very excited about what 2024 is likely to have, because we made some significant investments in 2023, which we expect to start reaping those benefits. And if I can just touch on a couple of them.
Yeah, please.
The first, obviously, is Ghana. So, we're building this business to be bigger and better, and we look at diversification in different ways. So Ghana was geographical diversification. So as I indicated before, we got a 1-year provisional license. I'm happy to announce that we sent a note to the stock exchange on Friday. I am pleased to announce that our partner, Game Park, was actually awarded a 10-year license to operate their lottery there.
Excellent.
And as you know, we are the technical advisor and other services to Game Park. So that's huge. And so what that does is that our partner now can actually put down much deeper, for a better word, lottery roots into the market space. And I think that's going to drive some revenues, it's going to drive material revenues, in my opinion, certainly to the back end of this year. So, our success there, we proved that we could export our proprietary lottery software. We actually set up Pick 1, Pick 4. It's operating, no issues in terms of from the operational perspective of what we did. We had a team there, so it was new for the company in terms of, sending people back and forth. That has gone pretty well. So now we can just focus on building out our, for a better, terrestrial distribution channel. The digital channel is up and running, it's working. There are challenges in terms of, internet reliability. I think not the other day, last month, I believe. Somebody broke the underground cable. It affected that digital channel, but it's coming back slowly but surely. So I expect some material earnings coming out of Ghana to the back end of this year. The greatest value, interestingly, that we've gotten from Ghana is how we can operate. So we have been extracting certain efficiencies that we get in Ghana back into our model here in Jamaica. So that has actually been helping with the efficiency in terms of how much more profit we make from a dollar here in Jamaica, and that has been invaluable. So that's one. Two, our fintech business. So the big thing for us last year was remittance. We got licensed, I believe, November, December. So how it works, the first phase is you have a limited rollout. We have 6 locations. It's going pretty well. And so we're going to be assessed by the central bank. Once they confirm that we're running the business in accordance with the details of the license, then we get to the second and final phase where we can now take on third-party locations and additional locations to expand our footprint. So we expect that to go pretty well because we think there are synergies with our target market and the remittance market. And certainly in this initial first phase, we're seeing that our revenues from just the 6 stores that we have is ahead of the budget that we have put in place. So we expect to start to reap material benefits from that within the next, I would say, 4 to 6 months. And we're looking forward to that because that generates additional cash in terms of foreign exchange gains, service fees, and that. We also have our bill payment. We have a bill payment software that we put in place. So again, that complements the remittance. As you know, we are the largest phone credit distributor in the country, and we sell at the right price. In that $100 phone card, we ensure our retailers sell it for no more than $125, which is $100 face plus the $25 GCT. So a lot of those investments, were from a technology perspective. We now have created an online distribution platform where what we refer to as single sign-on. So now you can go to just one site and you can get betting from Caymanas via MBet, any bet separately, just bet separately, and then all our lottery products. So we continue to invest heavily in software development. And we expect, so for last year, you had all of those costs, especially with Ghana. And for this year, we're now looking to mine, for want of a better word, some revenues from those investments. And, that's what we look forward to help the outperformance for 2024.
Good deal. So are you able to speak in general terms, Gary, as to how well the digital side of your business is doing versus the traditional, and whether you've set yourselves any targets over the next year or two? So just trying to get a perspective of, I know people like to go and touch the machines and make their bets and give the cash and then come back and collect the cash. And the whole idea is this is really a digital business, a transaction services business. And I think your reach can be so much more powerful through the mobile wallet, etc. How's that going? How's that transition, change, promotion going? And what do you hope to accomplish over the next year?
Yeah, I mean, that's important. Our digital business relative to a lot of other people out there is doing very well. So on a monthly basis, we generate revenues, probably on average in excess of $350 to $500 million. And that's right across our own
Right.
suite of business. And this is without our own proprietary wallet. The point at which we get to our proprietary wallet, those figures I expect will increase significantly. The journey to our proprietary wallet, we'll probably get a third-party wallet, as part of the fintech.
Right.
So we've gotten remittance. Once that's up and running, it puts us in a position to be able to get into the sandbox when we apply for a third-party wallet, and ultimately we'll have our own wallet. The difference between step 2 and step 3 is just really the cost. So when I use a third party, I pay them, plus I have my fee on top of it.
Yeah.
When I get my own wallet, then you don't have to do that. So once you get to the stage of having your own wallet, we'll be able, when you talk about banking and unbanked, I mean, the majority of our customers, I believe, fall into that category. You'll be able to bring them mainstream, where they can have they can do their transactions via what we refer to as a Supreme Life platform. So every 3 months we make an addition to that platform, and it will continue to evolve as we put additional businesses. And again, I've explained it to you, how we see Supreme. We see it as, initially as a transaction platform that you're going to put businesses onto.
Right.
We're now morphing into a technological company, because a lot of those businesses now, we're building the software to host those businesses. So in terms of the medium to long term, you will earn materially more than if you sat on a third party site.
Great. And again, it's limitless, right? When we talk about services, today you're doing some gaming, you into remittances, into bill payments.
Yes.
But it will eventually function like a full-blown wallet.
Yeah.
Point of sale machines, and be accepted
You can just
everywhere
come
in the
to
island.
you come to one location. You can move your cash in and out. You have the different services. So for example, in the case of Ghana, because of our discipline, we want to get the lottery business and distribution up and running. And once we do that, then we can basically diversify, just in keeping with our lines of business here in Jamaica. Sports betting in Ghana is big. Football is, people are crazy about football in Ghana, if not the whole of Africa. Right. But our fintech services is in demand in Ghana and the rest of Africa, which is microcredit, remittance. All these different businesses are required. So once we crack the code and have the build out for the lottery dusted, these other areas are very low hanging fruit for us to pick and benefit from, certainly from Ghana and maybe some other country if we end up in there.
Yeah, and that's what excites me about the business, really. I think it really is unlimited, the growth potential of the business.
Yes.
Geographically. I mean, again, I feel like Ghana is your testing ground, and once you've perfected that, your ability to roll out and execute your world-class IT solutions,
Yes.
it's limitless. I mean, you guys are accredited,
Yeah.
world renowned now,
Yeah.
and so I'm really excited. Mr. Berry, what about you? I mean, this is perhaps one of the largest single investments you have made wearing your Mayberry Jamaican Equities hat. What is it about Supreme Ventures that, forgive my French, turns you on in this manner, Mr. Berry? And what are your expectations in the coming year? It's at $24 today. We've seen their 4th best performing quarter ever in history, and I think a lot more is to come. But what are your expectations over the next year or so for SVL?
Well, if you allow me, Dan, I would like to ask Gary a question.
Please do.
Yes, Gary, based on what you're seeing for the rest of the year, how are you expecting the core business to perform? The business, the sports betting and the lottery business in Jamaica.
I think it will do well. Last year we went through different exercises. We had a receivables exercise that was successfully completed. During that process, sales for last year wasn't what we ideally would have expected. And so for this year, on average, we normally grow our revenue 10 to 15%. We didn't get that last year. And if you see, we've started kind of slowly this year, 2%. I think as we go along, I am expecting that we will get back into double digits. And that will be because of what the primary business can do. But there are headwinds. The underground is growing. And you need a decisive regulator to deal with that. So there are challenges out there that can affect your revenue. And why that is important. If you look at the numbers for last year, I mean, the profit, even though the profit fell to $2.4 billion, the government's take was still over $10 billion. So when you lose $1 to the underground, the government is losing, 20-30%, not 20-30%, approximately 70% of what $1 can do. So we have been trying to get our regulators to become more aggressive with the underground, but we continue. We'll see how that works itself out. But the core business, sports betting, lottery across the different products, we expect it to be strong. As you probably would have seen, Chris, we launched the Money Time jackpot. That has done very well for us. We've seen material increase in sales, and we expect that to continue. The competition in that space has been trying to react, but we have claimed market share in that space. And in that space, I don't mean the two lottery competitors. I'm talking about the box business, which really is the main competitor to our Money Time game, because it's a type of roulette game. So we expect strong growth, Chris. My expectation is to end the year with double-digit revenue increases. As I said, start of the year we're around 2%, so that means you'd see a material ramp up in those revenue increases. The BOJ has indicated that they may be looking at dropping rates later this year. Again, if that happens, I think that would increase the pace of that revenue increase. So I'm pretty confident that we will see that increase in revenues, and with that increase in revenues, is going to drive GGR and ultimately drive profits for us. Another key point, which I think may a lot of people might not have picked up, whilst a lot of people focus on increasing the finance costs, our interest income has started to jump rapidly. So again, even though we pay out 90% of our profits as dividends every quarter, we actually generate that profit and cash 2 or 3 months before, right? Then you pay it out technically in the 4th month. During that period, we have not only increased the efficiency of our treasury, but also with the rise in interest rates, it is benefiting Supreme in a positive way. And once interest rates remain elevated at this point, your interest income will continue to increase. And even if the interest rate starts to pull back a bit, we expect to have healthy interest income. As well, with the increase in the cash, we try to generate on average about $1 billion, $1.5 billion in free cash flow. So even after the dividend, the business still retains about $1 billion, depending on capex in cash per year. And so we're looking to use the majority of that cash flow to reduce our debt. We have some maturing debts, etc. So what you'll see is a rise in interest income, and it'll get to a point where you see the finance costs start to go down as we pay down more and more of the principal associated with various debt that we have in the portfolio.
Thank you for that, Gary. Mr. Berry, do you have a follow-up question?
Not at this time, Dan.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'm going to start taking some of the questions from online as we look to wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so. And O'Neill Johnson, I think you just missed it. He just asks, is the wallet ready?
No, the wallet has to go through a process.
Timeline?
It's, you're working with the regulator in terms of Bank of Jamaica,
Yep.
so you have to follow certain things
Yes.
at their pace.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that, the moment we make that announcement, Supreme is going to be a part of your everyday life.
Yeah. So
A
Governor
bigger part of your everyday life.
Governor Biles, I assure you, we're all about advancing access to banking. And so here's an easy one for you. You know, this is a company that's doing $30 billion in revenues in the quarter, almost all cash, and we're trying to encourage folks actually not to use cash as much. So this
So
mobile wallet,
let me interject there.
GGR.
When you ask the question about online, Dan,
Yes.
I want to go a step further. We actually have recurring customers. It's not somebody that comes in and does one transaction and goes away.
Yeah.
We have customers totaling almost $350 to $500 million worth of business every month.
Yes.
Right? Unlike some other entities who are in the digital space where they may have more customers than we do currently, but they do significantly less transactions. Right? We have people that are repeat customers every day, every month, every 3 months, every year. And so it's a business and it rolls. So it's a true online activity.
Excellent. And I'd like to see that 350 million get to $3 billion,
Yes.
and I think it can happen.
If you get a wallet, you get there.
We'll get there like really quickly.
Right.
And I got a question from JT. Now, I didn't make this up, folks. You know, this is a good one. Does SVL still need IGT? Can it now provide itself with its own gaming technology?
So the answer to that question is yes. We still need IGT. IGT is a partner, has been a partner from day one with SVL. The relationship has evolved over time. I believe it's probably as its best has ever been before. IGT brings a lot of things to the table, and not just as a lottery software. It's a large Fortune 500 Fortune 500 company. And you know what I'll say to you is, you know, as we move outside of Jamaica, right, having an international partner like IGT, your ability to assess markets is much better with somebody who's been able to do that kind of thing. So if you look at it from that perspective, you know, that is significant value that, you know, we're not giving up that value anytime soon. Yes, we have our proprietary software, but we already we have a contract with IGT. You know, so, and we're comfortable with where it is at this point in time. I mean, it's a contract that has evolved over time. You know, but what we know for a fact is, you know, companies have different, for want of better, tolerance level or hurdle rates, right? Or things where you create investment decisions, right? So, you know, the position we're in with our proprietary software, you know, Ghana, for example, one of the biggest barriers to entry to the Ghanaian market is the fact that they do not issue you a multi-year license as a new entrant. So you have to take the risk of coming into the market, operating for a year, and hoping that at the end of the year you've hit the targets and then you qualify for a multi-year license, right? There's several very large companies who may not be willing to take that risk.
Right.
And so we were able to not only take that risk, but we were also able to be up and running with our first game in less than 3 months, or on average. Basically, it took us 2.5 months, right? They're large, the larger players out there. They can't move that fast. They're not as nimble. Yeah. So, but if an opportunity comes where you have a longer runway, it puts us in a position to partner with an IGT to take advantage of that opportunity. You know, so it's a very valuable and important partnership for us at SVL, and something that we cherish. And as I said, we work very well together. And so we'll go down the road and continue to extract value.
All right, thanks for that. Philip Burgess, I think Gary just answered your question about the 1-year license versus 10-year and what's the significance of it. I think that's been answered.
And let me add something quickly to
Sure.
it. You know, a 1-year license, you know, carries significantly less weight than a 10-year license. You know, so what a 10-year license has done for our partner in Ghana, I mean, and we earn revenues based on their sales. You know, if for some reason Ghana doesn't work out, a 10-year license puts them in a position, and by extension us, to sell on the license. It's their decision to sell it on. They may sell it on to somebody who can extract more, but the relationship we have, then they can pass us on to them. Or if the new person comes in and doesn't want us on board, you get some value because we have a similar back-to-back arrangement. So what it means is that all investment that was put into the Ghana, the Ghana foray, for want of a better word, now that you have a 10-year license, you can potentially sell that license for a figure that probably not only would compensate you for the money that you invested, but give you a profit.
Right.
Because it's 10 years.
Yeah.
We're probably the first company that's associated with a standalone Ghanaian lottery company to have gotten a contract like that. You know, so it puts Game Park in a very, very good position, and by extension, ourselves.
Good, thanks for that. And again, I can see some folks joined us a little late. So newsflash, profit for the quarter, $868 million, up by 22% over Q1 last year, where it was only $712 million. This is the fourth largest profit I've seen SVL record in a quarter in recent times. So that brings everybody up to speed for those who joined a little bit late. The diplomat of the era asks, did you really declare a dividend? I'm not making this up, of 30 cents payable in July. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's not the biggest dividend we've ever declared.
No, you've passed 50 cents, if my memory serves me before.
I don't think so. I think our highest, the quarter we made $1 billion. I think it was 33 or 34,
33?
35 cents or something.
Very good.
But I mean, this history is there.
Okay. Are there new products or acquisitions coming?
There are always new products at SVL. And, you know, as it pertains to acquisition, you know, once there's value, we look at it.
Acquisitions or expansions, I'm sure they are coming. Okay, I thought we would get this one. So this one has to, coming from Robert Williams. How much of an impact will the issue with the races and the regulators at Caymanas impact earnings, and how quickly can this be resolved in your opinion?
The Caymanas continues to lose money, and I think the best way to answer the question is that we are relentless in our pursuit of profits at Caymanas. You know, whether or not the history of the people who were there or among some stakeholders that, you know, a racetrack must run at a loss. I mean, if a racetrack runs at a loss, somebody needs to subsidize it. I don't believe it's reasonable nor fair to ask the shareholders of SVL to subsidize a business when you have put us here as management to make money, as much money as possible from your other businesses, right? Two, there's several racing models across the world that produces profit for racetracks. And we have been studying and looking at the different ones, and we think that Jamaica can get into a similar position, right? But for us to achieve it, we need full buy-in from the regulators, the various stakeholders, etc. What I would say to you is that I think we have made pretty good strides with a lot of the stakeholders right across the board. I think where we are now, you know, we may be out of sync with the racing regulator. But again, I want to say whatever happened on Saturday could and should have been avoided, because we actually wrote the regulator 3 weeks prior, to which we didn't get a response. Which if they had responded and we sat down and explained what the risks were with this thing, Saturday would not have happened. Fortunately, it did not become violent. I'm really happy about that. You know, because a rule is a rule. You know, we need to abide by the rules. And so again, let's look at when I said we're out of sync, right?
And stick a pin here, just to bring everybody up to speed. This new rule is if the race doesn't start within 5 minutes of its scheduled start, then the race should be abandoned.
Yes,
the
two have the right.
The best of your knowledge, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, we're still researching,
okay.
but I think we've gone through about 200 countries.
To the best of your
203 countries.
To the best of your knowledge. Okay, very good.
We don't see it, right?
And it was, so back to your point.
Right. So the first thing is that you know, to have a regulator overreach and come into your operation. So they're now trying to tell you that the race must start by a certain time. And there are several things that can happen, right? The worst of which actually happened. So in a Diamond Mile race, the favorite, she's a man eater, bolted out of the starting gates before the race started. It was a very unfortunate thing. They had to scratch she's a man eater. But if the rules today were in then, our feature race or most expensive race could have been abandoned, which would have been a travesty, right? You know, one of the most successful Diamond Mile winners, Seeking My Dream, owned by, you know, former Member of Parliament Derek Smith, great man, legend, who's also a commissioner of the JRC. The reality is that if this rule was in place, those 2 Diamond Mile races that his horse won could have been abandoned because those races were run several minutes past the 5 minutes after post. And so nobody can control exactly all the different things that can happen. In fact, we had a situation where 2 weeks ago, I believe, the first race was held up because of the stewards, right? But they didn't abandon it. You know, so, you know, is this an arbitrary rule whereby if the promoter does it, we're gonna abandon your race, but if the steward does it, we don't abandon it, right? And we can get into many examples. I think the reality is that, you know, the regulator should regulate. You know, as I said, they have overreached. They've come into the operations, and it's likely to go further because the chairman of the regulator, at a recent interview, you know, is making references to purses and what the level of purses should be. So, you know, if the regulator is positioning to come and tell you that, hey, purses must be this, and they're not thinking about what the economics is, etc. Your start time must be this, and you know, it's gone far. It's gone too far, right? And the simple fact is that, you know, we're a private sector entity, right? I would ask the question, if I was a foreign investor, would I be treated this way? But we believe in dialogue, and we are in the pursuit of harmony in the horse racing industry, and I believe we're going to get harmony in the horse racing industry. We might disagree on some things, but at the end of the day, there will be consensus, and you know, that's what we ask for. And, you know, before these things are done, let's sit down around a table and get a solution that's in the betterment of all. So I say all of that to say, I expect it to pass in some way, shape, or form, but we will not stop in our pursuit of profitability for Caymaners because we know it can be profitable.
Okay, thanks for that. And we look forward to that. I mean, there are many stakeholders involved. This thing creates a lot of jobs for a lot of folks. And I was in a meeting today, and I had a very powerful client speak about this abandonment and you know, how is he going to get paid? This is a guy that's worth $4, $5, $6 billion on a bad day. And a lot of guys do this thing out of love. You know, they love horses. They're giving back. They're wealthy. They didn't make their wealth from horse racing. It's a passion. It's something they love to do. And so to have these rules introduced without, you know, fully consulting with all of the stakeholders, and we get it, the regulators want to regulate, but we have to come up with things that make sense, that helps the industry move forward.
Agreed. I mean, what I'll say to you, everybody talk about the love of the sport, right? It's a known fact that every single professional sport is subsidized by what is called the owner's subsidy. So in football, Chelsea is subsidized by Abramovich, Liverpool, the guys from Boston, every sport. I mean, the simple fact is that the first true sport, which is horse racing, which they call the king of sport, was really controlled by royal families because they had the largest owner subsidy at the time. As we have come through the years, you know, wealth has been distributed much widely, and some of the new people with wealth don't like horse racing. They like football, they like basketball, whatever it wants to be. You know, so whether it's the owner, the government, or whatever, every sport is subsidized, right? And so if somebody loves the sport, and the question is, what is the level of owner subsidy in Jamaica relative to other jurisdictions? Is it that far out of whack? Yeah, but that's a conversation we can talk about. But with certainty, you cannot and should not have a rule that at the end of the day, the only person who is not personally impacted by the rule are the regulators, because they're indemnified, right? You know, I'm going to write them to compensate me, but let's see how that goes, right? But at the end of the day, the promoter has lost money, the owner has lost money, the jockey has lost money, the groom has lost money. Everybody has lost money except the people who actually did this. Stewards get their check and they go home, right? The government has lost money. I think they lost about $2 million in taxes from the 2 abandoned races. You know, it makes no sense.
Right.
Right? So, you know, the only people who technically, you know, benefited from this were the regulators or the employees of the regulators that affected the rule, you know? So I think the regulator needs to move to a position where if they're going to do something, consultation is required. They certainly did not speak to the promoter, still have not spoken to the promoter in an official way. And, you know, these things, it doesn't take much. Just Google. You can just Google the world and see what exists. I mean, how else you can do these things, right? It's not rocket science, right? You know, so I think once
assuming that the fellow knows how to use Google.
Yeah. Even if he doesn't know how to use it, he should have people there who can, right? And so, as I said, we are trying to do this not just to make profit for my shareholders at SVL. When we find a way to make Caymanas profitable, it becomes sustainable. It develops its own ecosystem, and it's going to carry more people into the ecosystem, right? So we're not just doing this because, you know, it's just, you know, we want to create a problem, etc. But the fact of the matter is, we have doubled the revenues of Caymanas have increased by, I think, 2.5 times. I think when we came, it was $4 billion. It's now north of $10 billion. So it's 2.5 times that we have increased the revenues of the business. Where purses were then to where they are now is materially different. So the business is growing, right? There are more horses, there are more people that are bringing in horses, you know? I mean, think about it. A Jamaican consortium put up, my guesstimate, probably about 50 or 60,000 US for a horse, which they normally buy horses for 5,000-10,000, and brought a horse here just to win our feature race, which is a Mute Mile, right? So if the product is not doing what it's supposed to do, why are people making these investments, right? And as I said, quietly, there are many influential people that came on us who understand and appreciate what we're doing at SVRL, but they don't necessarily want to be on the front page, right? But at the end of the day, dialogue. And the dialogue will come, one way or the other. And I believe we'll get to a point where consensus comes and we continue this trek to get it profitable.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Chairman, unless you have any further questions, I am inclined to wrap this up.
Let's wrap it up.
All right, folks. Well, you heard it here first at Mayberry Investments Limited, $800+ million profit for SVL in their first quarter. Welcome back, Mr. Peart.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing bigger and better things to come. We are really proud of the works that are happening there. 93% of all revenues from SVL goes right back into this country, folks. I want you to appreciate that. And the government is the largest stakeholder, $26 billion since 2004,
yes,
Gary.
But I need to make this point, right? The government set up an entity called Chase.
Yes,
Chase
the
is
Chase Fund.
Culture, Health, Arts, Sports, and Entertainment.
Yes.
Right? Over 90% of the revenues that they get comes directly from the lottery business.
Yep.
Right? So over 90% of all the projects that Chase completes every year, right? I mean, I need to increase the pace at which they complete them, but over 90% of it is because of the work that is being done at the lottery. You know? So we don't talk as much about that as we should, but it is real. You know, SVL doesn't have representation on a body that 90% of their revenues comes from us. Yeah. Right? You know, we have very competent people in terms of how to deal in some of these things. And again, maybe that's a conversation we need to have. You know, how can we contribute 90% towards this entity and we don't even get a say? You know? So again, we are doing so much good in the country. And, you know, I've been telling my team, do not be ashamed to speak about the good causes that we've been doing, right? And so every time you see a Chase project, know that that's SVL. That's your lottery company helping to build this country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and so it's only fair that we think about the main stakeholders, the shareholders who've invested in the company, and thank you for that dividend that's coming in July. But we really look forward to bigger and better profits going forward, so that this company can continue to do bigger and better things. Over $3 billion invested in Caymanas since you've taken over that. $4 billion.
And growing.
And growing. I mean, much more than was invested by the government of Jamaica in the prior 20 years, by the way. So
I don't know about that part. But what I can say to you,
it's huge.
The agreement we had with the government was that we would spend $500 million. We'll spend $4 billion.
8 times.
We might not have done the 6 specific things that was indicated in the deed, but we have done 27 other things.
Yeah. And the investment is indisputable. So good job there, guys. We look forward to you and the team, Gary, because I know you've got a big team standing behind you, supporting you there. We definitely look forward to coming again next quarter to see if we can keep raising the hurdle. I have no doubt that the stock price is going to start to move, folks, so it's still not too late to get yourselves some SVL. I look forward to coming back and hearing about the progress in Ghana as well, too. So thanks for the good job there. Really appreciate it. Well, folks, thank you guys for tuning in as usual to today's discussions. I'd like to thank our viewers for your constant support over the years. It's really appreciated. And big up to our panelists, Mr. Berry, thank you for being here, sir, for Gary, for leading the entity. To our viewers, be sure to look out for updates just like this. We do them once a week. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow with MCG Group. I'm excited. Haven't even seen those results.
MGE.
MJE? Is it a MJE reading tomorrow?
Yes.
Oh, MJE tomorrow? I thought it was MGL.
So actually, MGL.
We're doing MG. What did I say? MGL.
So when we're doing MJE?
MJE will be soon after that. We're going to do 2 in 1 week. I think we should give them a week before we do MJE.
Up to you, Dan. You're in charge.
All right.
Dan the man.
I wish I were in charge. I'm not even in charge of my own household, but...
That's normal.
We're going to do MGL tomorrow, and then next week we might do MJE. But we've got a lot of exciting live updates to do, guys. We've got about 5 or 6 Jamaica Stock Exchange entities who've agreed to release their results through us, and so we're going to be doing a lot more of that. This quarter is going to be exciting. We're going to have at least 5 more shows in the next month, catching all of the Q1, Q2 results that are coming out. So we're going to be back with a lot more like this, Chairman. At least 5 more, guys, over the next 4 or 5 weeks. So look forward to that. To our viewers, be sure to look out for our updates on our virtual forum on social media. We share things formulated on our social media pages. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mayberry Investments Limited. And remember, wise investors, slow and steady wins the race. Keep safe. Bye, guys. See you tomorrow.
The Mayberry Investments Limited Virtual Investor Forum has been the standard for investor education in Jamaica for decades, where top financial minds provide comprehensive insight into the market and ideal investment strategies and opportunities for our clients. Celebrating 37 years of excellence in investment banking. The Mayberry Virtual Investor Forum, investing in Jamaica.